Hey there, youth and youth families. Welcome back to this time of Table Talk where we're talking about submission. Now, today, you might not be my biggest fan because we're going to talk about submission to authority. Did I hear a collective groan out there? Okay, so you've probably heard a ton of messages in the last little while about submission to like governments and rules and stuff like that. I'm not going to go there today, because I feel like if you want a really great message on that, what you need to do is go back onto our YouTube feed there and go to October 18th message that Pastor Sean preached. It was called Submitting to Authority God's Way. Really good. You can check out that message, and he really takes the scriptural perspectives on that and reads through Romans chapter 13, I think it is, and talks a lot about that. Today, I'm going to get a little bit more challenging, because we're going to talk about submitting to parents. Now, I've just made it awkward in the room if your parents are sitting there with you, and hey, let's just take a moment, embrace the awkward, let's go with this. And now, parents, be gracious to your kids, because they might learn some things here, so you might not want to like immediately kind of go, Pastor Steve said it, so you got to do it. You might want to just all hug it out for a little while and, you know, let this message sink in for a little bit. Because here's what I want to talk about. I feel like there's this conflicting message out there that I find hard. Now, if you can find it in the Bible, bring it to me, because I'm not really quite getting this from what I see. It's this idea that respect is something that is earned. It's not really a principle that I've found in the Bible. Now, there are a lot of things in relationships that are earned. Let's talk about a couple. Things like trust. Trust is earned. How deep I let you into my life, that's something that you prove to me. If I feel my thoughts are safe with you, I might share with you my secrets, right? If I feel like you're a good driver, I might trust you to drive me somewhere, things like that. Another thing that's earned in a relationship, intimacy. Intimacy is something that is earned in relationships. And I can see that this is, you know, evidenced in a lot of dysfunctional relationships, is when intimacy is demanded. When you hear someone say, if you love me, you will do this. You know, and that's usually preceded by like asking you to do something that you're really uncomfortable with. And that can quickly become an abuse, and intimacy is something that is earned. And I will give intimacy to those whom I've discovered are trustworthy with my emotions, with my heart, and I will open up more of my heart with you, and I will share with you some of the things that I generally keep more private with those whom I can trust with intimacy. These are a couple things, examples, and I could go on many others, but we want to get back to submission and respect. These are a couple things that are earned in relationships. However, I would challenge the thought that respect is something that is earned. You know what? There are times in extreme cases where cooperation, however, might be conditional. When someone asks you to, from a position of authority, asks you to do something that's against the Bible, a greater authority, you know what, then cooperation is something that you could bring back from the Bible and say, actually, I'm not supposed to cooperate when it tells me to do something against God. However, there's rarely a case in the Bible where I feel that the Bible supports disrespect. And this is why respect is an element of submission that is assigned or commanded to positions of authority. And the people who are in those, it's not because they're maybe deserving of it, but because God has placed them in that position of authority. Humans can fail in some of these positions. You know what? I'm not saying that everyone that's been put by God in a position is really good at that position. However, you know, we can treat some of those things with compassion, because some of those positions are really hard. They have challenges that we rarely see. You know, in this time where people are critical of governments and stuff, I kind of go like, hey, why don't you try doing their job for a week or two? Because man, it couldn't be easy. It seems really clear to a lot of people the solutions to problems, because they've only seen a small portion of those problems. You know what? It's kind of like that being a parent too. It looks like an easy job from the outside, but once you get behind the curtain, you kind of go, wow, This is a really hard job, and many of you will experiencing that. Respecting, whereas the Bible says honoring your parents is really important because it's not something that's based on our parents' ability to do the job well, but rather it's a position that God has put them in, and it requires respect for it to go well. Let me illustrate it like this. Let's go back to that thought. Remember I said a couple days ago, something to the effect of, imagine if like a teacher kind of came in and there was chaos in the room and stuff. You got that picture in mind. Now, you've all had a teacher that probably wasn't like really fantastic at teaching or classroom management. And I've heard students say, hey, you know what, like I will give them respect when they earn it. Well, what if you just flip that on its head a little bit? What if you assume to give that teacher, that same teacher that might not have been fantastic at teaching or classroom management, just assume to give them respect so that they can kind of get themselves rooted and get things figured out so they could get things under control. And you could see how leadership works so much better when respect is given rather than earned. It's an important thing that I feel is in the Bible. And that's exactly how it goes with parents too. In Ephesians chapter 6, it says to honor your father and mother, which is the first commandment with a promise so it may go well with you and that you can enjoy long life on this earth. The truth is, respect is not something that we earn, but rather it's something that we owe to the positions that people hold, the positions that God assigned those people to, even when they don't necessarily deserve them. So what do we do when it gets hard? Well, first of all, do this. Remember that the respect that you give is not a reflection of the other person's deserving of it, okay? We don't give respect because the other person is deserving of it. Giving respect is not a reflection of their deserving, but it's a reflection of our character. Our willingness to give it is a reflection of our character. And you'll find this in any relationship. When we give respect, it's not because others are worthy, but rather it's a gift that we give to God. It's something that we do for God's sake, not for the other person's sake, because He is worthy. So when it gets difficult, when it's hard, that's where we come to God and we ask Him for help. Next, we look inward. I love a passage in 1 Peter 5, and it talks about how God gives grace to the humble, but He opposes the proud. Actually, it's just flip reversed. And how many of you, how much of what you're feeling is, in terms of your wrestling with giving respect or submission is because of the stuff that's going on inside of you. Sometimes I find it hard to submit to authorities when I am self-centered, when I'm feeling kind of lazy, when I'm feeling combative or grumpy. As humans, it's natural to blame others when we are feeling these ways. And we don't always cooperate or respect people in authority when it's really the stuff that's going on inside of us. So why don't we pray and work at a shift in that? Why not choose what is pleasing to God and surrender those things? Finally, I want to make one last kind of connection that might help you out in terms of submitting to your parents. Now, one of the realities of life is we grow from childhood, where our parents are really involved in our lives, into, adolescence, into adulthood, where some of us might want our parents to take a few steps back from their involvement in our life. And you might be wrestling through this right now. And I want to just balance a few things out for you. First of all, this is completely natural. All right? In a parent's eyes, you are always going to be their little kid. No matter how old you get. I think my mom even probably, well, she says it to me at times. I still think of you sitting on my lap and stuff like that. And I'm like, Mom, I'm in my 40s. Like, that day has passed a long time ago. But that is just how we're wired as parents, because we love you. Now, as a youth, and I've been there too, where you kind of go, man, I really want to stretch my wings a little bit here, and I don't want to come under all the rules of my household anymore. I don't feel it's fair that I should have to come home at a certain time or clean the moldy dishes under my bed or any of those sorts of things. And I want to just tell you, you know what, that is normal. And these are indications too that, you know what, maybe it's time, maybe we are growing, maybe these are the alerts that as you become an adult, it's time to find your own place, establish your own regulations. And many of us recognize pretty quickly why our parents had those rules and stuff like that. Here's what I'd like to hear you say from me, because I want to be careful with some of these things, because I don't think the solution is to run away from conflicts or run away from times that are hard or run away when God is teaching us how to submit. But here's one thing that I just want to talk about in terms of the relationship with our parents is when we start to feel the desire for the privileges of adulthood, we also need to embrace the responsibilities of adulthood. If you don't want to clean up after yourself, then you need to have the space of your own that you get to make those decisions over. But when it's your parents' space, it's important. They're the authority in that space to follow the guidelines that they put. Like I said, you're probably always going to be a parent, or you're always going to be a child in your parents' eyes, and that is fantastic because they are going to love you well as that. So as your parents are loving you well by setting the guidelines around you, I want you to do something here. I want you just to enjoy this for a minute. And this is the old guy speaking to you, and I know that this is probably hard to hear, and it'll probably just be words that kind of evaporate in. But in these moments, really enjoy coming under the direction of your parents and soak up the life lessons that they're trying to impart to you, because they're trying to prepare you for adult life. So learn those things and then make them proud by taking the things that you learn from them and apply them to adult life. And you might need to do that outside of their basement, because as long as you live under your parents' roof, they're going to try to prepare you even more for adult life. And if you want to stretch your wings and live adult life, that is something we do when we have our own roof and we live out our adult lives there. All right, so that's a lot to unpack in terms of submitting to authority. As you think these things through, keep us in the loop, let us know how you're doing, and blessings on your day.